Hello and welcome to Global Sources Buyer Fireside Chat. My name is Meghla Bhardwaj and I am your host for this live webinar. Today we're going to be talking about a couple of different topics that are very relevant for buyers. So first of all, we are going to be talking about e-commerce and how Amazon and e-commerce sellers are responding to all of the changes that are happening because of COVID and all of the lockdowns in various countries. And then we're also going to be talking to the managing director of Colliers International from Hong Kong to understand how he is dealing with all of the challenges managing a large corporation. So first of all, let's start talking about e-commerce. And for that, I have with me Annie Barnes and Jason Tay. Hi, guys. How are you doing?
Good morning, Meghla. Hi. Good, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. Cool. So Jason and Annie, you both are experienced Amazon sellers. And so we're going to be talking about how you have really dealt with all of the challenges that 2020 has literally thrown at all of us. So before we get into that, can you introduce yourselves a little bit for our audiences and let them know what sort of experience do you have? So Annie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having us again, Meghla. And hi, everyone. Good day. I'm Annie. I live in Perth, Western Australia. We're a family of 4. And we started our e-commerce business over 2.5 years ago, selling predominantly in Amazon USA, followed by Canada. And since last year, we started selling on Amazon Australia. And in addition to that, we're selling from eBay Australia as well as from our own website, where we ship our products internationally. And yes, this is our first e-commerce business. And it suits us very well as we have 2 primary school going kids. So it's pretty full on, but we could manage run this business full time in addition to juggling family. So yes, it's been a wonderful experience, and happy to share our experience today as a buyer. Yeah, thanks again.
Awesome. Jason, how about you?
Hi. Yeah, I started selling on Amazon late 2013. And that helped me have freedom and flexibility of time as well as finances. Right now, besides Amazon, I also sell. We have our own brand website, and we also have a little warehouse space in Singapore where we fulfill some of our orders from, and we also sell various other third-party marketplaces. So that's been great.
Awesome. Okay, so let me ask both of you, what sort of challenges have you guys faced in 2020 because of COVID? And, especially whether it's related to sourcing or whether it's related to all of the drama at Amazon. Let's talk about all of the challenges that you guys have faced. Jason, why don't you go first?
Wow. Okay. So this year I faced a couple of major dramas. Maybe I'll start with the one everybody's been facing, COVID-19. So the pandemic situation, I guess, threw a curveball. Fortunately, our sales have actually gone up for the most part because half of our products have people order a lot more online, so that's been helpful. But we also do have some products that are more like event or party related. And of course, sales for those kinds of products have gone down because people can't have events or whole parties or weddings, that kind of thing. So a bit mixed. The other big challenge with COVID-19 is when it comes to Amazon or any product related thing is the supply chain is affected. So that was factories a little affected, and then delivery times and all that, logistics. And the big one, if you're selling on Amazon, is that Amazon blocked all incoming shipments for FBA for a while, and then even up to now, or at least up till we don't know when, they have limited reshipment quantities. So currently, I'm sure Annie and myself, we're all dealing with that. Like I have a fairly big shipment that is ready to ship out from the supplier, and I can't ship it directly to Amazon, so I've had to deal with that. What else? I think the big one, the big drama with Amazon is that I had my Canadian and Mexican accounts suspended earlier this year. for like a false flag. So I manage some other accounts as well. And actually some of my clients' accounts also got suspended in May. And only yesterday was one of my clients' accounts reinstated after 6 months of appealing, escalating, reporting Amazon to the Better Business Bureau in America, that kind of thing, putting pressure. And so my accounts got reinstated fairly quickly, but my clients took like 6 months. So that's always, something that can happen.
Exactly. What about you, Annie? What sort of challenges have you been facing?
Yes, COVID certainly has affected our products because we are dealing with 100% outdoor product. So in the month of March, we could see that the sales, it was doing very well just prior to COVID affecting USA. And since it hits USA, because most of our sales come from USA, it just started sliding slowly, and then it just went pretty steep. And we have actually lost over 50% of business in a month of since March, April. And luckily, I think from May onwards, it's picked up, but it's nowhere near to last year's figure. And so it was pretty challenging. And in addition to that, we started sourcing from India. We joined you, Megla, on your India sourcing trip. So we went up with a vendor and we placed an order with them. And because India was in lockdown, I think for 2 months. So we had a big order with India, our first order. So it was on hold for 2 months. And then our sales slowed down, but still we are really out of stock on some products. And so we were stuck in the bind, whether should we order, what should we do? And as a result, because of this lockdown, we had to go back to China to order some inventory just to tide us through, because I think by then China was recovering. So I have to actually put in more capital to order more stocks than necessary just to tide us through the time. And so in addition to that, the challenges, and like what Jason say, right now, because of Amazon's restriction, now we got the stocks, we can't send them in. And also in our niche, competitors started selling much lower prices because the sales have dropped, everyone started dropping the price quite significantly. So basically our margin is squeezed. So lower sales with squeezed margin is just getting quite challenging. But there's always positive in that situation. Because of that, it has actually allowed us to look at what can we do to pivot. And now we are pivoting. So we're still selling in the space, but we're pivoting and developing a new brand. And as a result, India suits us very well with the new brand. And we've actually moved away from China. We're now sourcing 99% from India. And we also have a new product coming out of Vietnam as well. So looking at the positive of these whole challenges is actually given us more confidence to move forward. And I'm pretty confident things will be better in next year for sure.
Awesome. So guys watching, if you have any questions for Annie or Jason, write them in the comments and then we'll ask them the questions. So Annie, let's talk about how you are pivoting. So you said your sales were down. So what sort of, are you developing new products that are somehow, non-COVID related, or they're not impacted by any significant changes? Like what sort of, how are you pivoting?
Yes, for sure. First, what we did was we cut down our expenses to conserve cash. And also we were pretty lucky or grateful that in the last over a couple of years, we built up quite a good cash, healthy cash bank account. So we used that to tide us through the bad times. And so we had a strategy session with our accountant, see what we could do. And as a result, we decided that, yes, we're developing a new brand, which is just going to be focusing on indoor products. And so then we started looking at what we could develop, sourcing out of India, because of Trump's tariff has affected our outdoor product. And so we're looking at India, what we could do. And as a result, also through the sourcing shows, we managed to get in touch with some suppliers. And right now we're developing, I think, about 5 new 6 products. And we're looking at launching about probably up to 10 SKU in Q1 next year. So yes, I took the downtime to actually look, re-strategize what our goals are and work on sourcing and developing and pivoting. So I'll be launching the new brand next year. And we'll be working on both the current brand plus the new brand into one account. And hopefully then we could have a better package when we exit the business in about 2 or 3 years' time.
That sounds like a good plan, Annie, exiting in 2 or 3 years.
That's a lot of Amazon sellers, that's the goal, yeah.
Let's talk about your experience in India. So, and a lot of people nowadays are also looking at diversifying their sourcing and sourcing from different alternative markets, whether it's India or Vietnam. So let's talk about your experience. First of all, you said it took 8 months, and a bit of that was because of COVID. But
yes.
Even without COVID, it takes longer. The entire product development cycle, I think, in these other countries takes a bit longer. Can you share your experience sourcing from India for the first time, and any advice that you have for people who are looking to source from India?
Yes, I think sourcing from India is quite different from sourcing from China. I think sourcing from India, they are quite detailed. They want to know every aspect, or if we have a new design, we usually just sketch it on, and then we send the tech pack through. But they always need to work out the physical product. They even want a sample, or they need to make the product first before they provide a quotation. So the quotation would take at least a week. And I think during COVID, it took 2 weeks or 3 weeks just to get a quote, because they need to make a prototype. Whereas with China, we just have to send a tech pack within 24 hours. We get a ballpark price. So it was quite different. And yes, the production time is a lot longer. It's because they're unfamiliar with our products, and also because some materials of our product has to be sourced from China. And because of COVID, I think it took a lot longer, or sometimes they think they could get it, and then due to logistics issues, they couldn't source the materials, and then they have a look at alternative. But I think India is definitely coming up. A lot of products, like even polyester product, we deal with a lot of textiles, are now available from India, which is fantastic. And actually the quality is so much better as well, because they really put emphasis on quality, and they are very proud of what they produce. So having said that, it says, yes, we just have to keep on top of them. And that is the main advice. We have to keep in touch with them, make sure to tell them, hey, we're here and how things going. And it helps that we're dealing with a sourcing agent. I think they took away a lot of other headaches. I think in the background, I think they probably just filtered through a lot of those challenges. And yes, so as a result, we actually end up being much better. We have a better product. We save up to 40% cost in comparison to China. It's just a longer lead time, but because it took so long for the first order, which took 8 months, including the lockdown. So for the second order, before we place an order, we negotiated, and we said very strictly that if they fail us again, originally we were reluctant to go back to them, but they wanted our business. So they say, yes, they will keep up with the timeline. And also because they knew our product better, this time they could meet the timeline for our second order. Yeah. So yeah,
right.
My experience in India. So it's fantastic, I would say.
Okay. Yeah. Overall, I think it would be worth it. I mean, especially if there is a 40% decrease in your cost. I think that makes it worthwhile.
Definitely, yeah. I'm very happy at the end, even though it took longer the first time. Yeah.
Right. And is the cost savings mostly because of tariffs, or are the product prices themselves like lower in India than in China?
Product prices are lower, including the commission paid to agent. Better quality, so much better quality. And also the freight, I was very surprised. The freight was so much better in comparison to out of China. It was shipped from New York to, from Navashiva to New York. And yeah, the shipping cost was a lot lower as well, including the customs and everything else. So the whole package was, at the end, the cost of goods sold was 40% lower in comparison to China. And that helped because our niche, the prices kept coming down. So right now I have a bigger buffer to absorb the lower selling prices. Which means that I'm able to maintain and sell at a lower price and still maintain our dominance in that niche.
Right. Makes sense. So Jason, you also have a lot of different places that you source from, right? Some of your products are from the US and China. You've even sourced from Sri Lanka. So tell us how you had to change your sourcing strategies over the last few months, or did you have to change them at all because you're already so diversified?
Yeah, so the diversification definitely helped with having some bridges still functioning while others were down. However, I have changed some of my ordering kind of strategies. And I think the main thing is because the supply chains tend to be disrupted. So I've now started ordering in larger quantities. I've always preferred to order like on a just-in-time basis. So, like for my US supplies, I usually order monthly. I never keep more than like an extra 2 weeks buffer of stock in Amazon, for example, for US suppliers. But with delays in like even domestic US shipping, I've had to extend that out to like having a month of buffer stock. And then for my other products that ship internationally from other countries into the US, I've moved from, I used to do like 3 months worth. So ordering and shipping 4 times a year. I've now moved it to, depending on the supplier and the country that's coming from, anywhere from 4 to 6 months worth of stock per order. That's to minimize and provide a buffer for the disruptions. Like Amazon, for example, one big one is Amazon delays in receiving. Another one would be just clearing customs. Generally takes longer, and that's a combination of both Q4 and also with COVID-19. So I've dealt with Q4 for a few years now, and I always expect delays during Q4, whether at the ports or whether with Amazon or anywhere else. But this year it's exacerbated because of COVID-19. So with ordering more at a time and Amazon not allowing you to ship in as much currently, that creates like a minus scenario. And so one thing that I've had to do is work more with, I've had to look for and send my stuff to third-party logistics services to hold the stock. So like let's say 6 months of stocks I ship there, and then every month they send in a bit at a time. So that's been the major change.
Right. And so this limitation is even for existing SKUs, right? It's not
Yes.
it's not only for new SKUs. For new SKUs, you cannot send in more than 200.
Yes.
But for existing SKUs, it depends on your IPI score and all of that, right?
Yep.
That's right. And sales velocity.
Yeah, the sales velocity. Okay.
Yeah.
We have one question for you, Jason. So Suchi is asking, would you suggest any sourcing agent or website for sourcing products from USA?
I don't use any sourcing agents for sourcing from the USA because it's easy to communicate and most things are very straightforward. So my favorite tool for looking for manufacturers from the US is Google search. However, there are some sites that might be helpful. Like one of them I often share is called eventsinamerica.com. It's essentially a trade show directory for trade shows that happen in the US. So you can go there and then you can search by industry depending on what kind of product you want to sell. And then you look for all the different trade shows that are available. You don't have to attend them. You can register for them because typically once you register for a trade show, then you have access to the directory with all the contact details of all the vendors. And then you can from there proceed to contact those you might be interested to source from.
Right. And what sort of products are you sourcing from the US, Jason?
Stuff that stuff that is premium and has what I would say, an American customer would not want to buy that is made in China. Yeah. So I think stuff where quality is more a concern or safety, that kind of thing, or where the American consumer might be willing to pay more for if it's made locally.
Right.
Yep.
Suchi is saying, "Hey Annie, your story is very inspiring." Yes,
Thanks,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the coming few months in 2021. So what are you guys optimistic about in terms of, whether it's e-commerce or sourcing? What are you guys optimistic about? Annie, you go first.
Yes, definitely. Actually, COVID, say there's always positive to any situation. I think the positive is that e-commerce has actually exploded because I'm in a mastermind group, and some of the mastermind members, their sales have just exploded. In the right product niche. So definitely, I think this trend is just going to move, get better and better. And like I said, that's the reason why I'm developing the second brand, which is just focusing more on indoor products. And I see a lot of opportunities in the e-com space. I think people are just getting used to shopping online now. Even my in-laws who don't normally buy from eBay, and she just told me she bought something. Said, "Oh wow, you bought something from eBay," which is they normally go to the shop, but and I say this is so cool. So imagine at that age, they are so slowly getting used to shopping online, and I think this trend is just not going to stop. It's just going to get better. And therefore, I see a lot of opportunities. It's just going to get better. And I think we're in the right business, selling on e-commerce. And yes, I'm very excited for next year. And just can't wait to launch these new products from India. And I'm pretty happy. I just want to take this opportunity to say thanks, Megla, for the trip. And I think that was the moment that really changed, because before that, I didn't think it was possible to source from India, and you made it possible. So yeah, I'm just very grateful. I always say that I'm glad I went on the trip, and that has really helped our business to actually see the positive and grow next year.
Awesome. I'm so happy to hear that, Annie. Thank you.
Yes.
So are you also thinking of expanding onto other marketplaces apart from Amazon, or will you be focusing on Amazon?
Well, actually, I would just be focused on Amazon. And because what happens is right now I'm selling in Amazon, US, Canada, and Australia. And also out of our website, I found that it's just a lot of moving parts, customer service and so on, and fulfillment. And even though we can automate a lot of the business, but I found that it is best just to focus and simplify the business so that we could get, it's just like the 80-20 rule, like Gary Pang always say that. And as a result, I decided for my new brand, I will just be selling on Amazon USA and Canada, just 100% FBA. And I think to just simplify the business model, and therefore, when I package and sell this business, eventually it becomes it's just more manageable, and that suits me. And I think that's my plan, rather than trying to expand to too many marketplaces. And I do understand the risk involved, but I'm happy to just keep it simple and where it's more manageable with a leaner business, rather than trying to be doing everything. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. So Jason, we have a question. I think this is more suited for you. First of all, let's say hi to Marg. Marg is saying hi.
I'm hi.
Okay, so Cecile is asking, hi all, we have opened our new online store, but we're not getting much sales yet. We're seeing add to cart, but we have not been able to convert all to sales. Would appreciate any tips on how we can make the interested shoppers make the purchase. So maybe Jason, you can take this question, because you do have your own website as well, apart from selling on Amazon. So what tips do you have?
Okay, Susil. So I'm assuming that it's your own website. And the issue is you do get impressions, you do get click-throughs, and you do get add to cart, but people are not checking out. I guess a few things to help people with having better conversions would be try to make the checkout process as simple as possible, and do not have distracting things on the checkout page. So like some people on their checkout or cart page, they have like a ton of things going on that distract people, and then they go browse like other stuff. The other thing would be to offer more payment options. So for example, if you're not offering PayPal as an option, although PayPal might take a slightly bigger percentage cut, let's say than Stripe or Square for direct credit card payments, many people feel more comfortable paying through PayPal rather than typing, let's say, their credit card number into an unknown website. So yeah, maybe those couple of things. Try to keep that checkout process really focused, and also offer more payment options. So besides PayPal, maybe like Apple Pay, Google Pay, and then the regular credit card options.
Okay, awesome. That's good advice. Okay, Jason, so let's talk about your plans for the next few months and what are you excited about?
I'm so I've spent the last couple of years sort of. I need to back up a bit. So like the first few years when I started selling, it was only on Amazon, and then when the sales sort of replaced my former salary income, that's when I started building my own website. And then my wife came on board, and so my wife manages our website and other e-commerce channel sales. So that's helpful. So that's between the two of us. But because for us, the important thing is to have freedom and flexibility of time. So like when I tried doing FBM, then that was like, whoa, I'm being sucked in. It's a huge time suck, responding to customer queries, dealing with returns, refunds, and all that. So I've sort of like completely pivoted away from doing FBM, even though FBA was sort of like had issues. So my plans coming up would be mainly, I think it's to scale, especially in the last year, and then I think going forward as well, is to focus on scaling efficiently. And that's primarily two-pronged. The first prong for Amazon, which I deal with, is to use Amazon advertising or PPC ads effectively. So I've been majoring on Amazon advertising for the last year and a half or so, and that's helped to scale sales quite a bit. And I see a lot of people who don't understand how to use ads effectively. They are very, very powerful if you know what you're doing. It's a gold mine of data. And the other thing would be, I guess, for our other Amazon channels, to also look at how we can grow those in a fashion that doesn't require a lot of man hours. Yeah, so outsourcing is an important part of that. So for example, to grow our non-Amazon sales channels, I've had to hire staff. So we do have one staff that takes care of all that, all the orders that we have to fulfill ourselves. Yeah, if I was the one doing all the packing and taping, then that would not be possible, and the business would not be able to grow or scale.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds pretty exciting. And are you also diversifying onto other Amazon marketplaces? So, Japan, Singapore, India,
well,
UK.
I've mainly just added the remote fulfillment option. So that's if you're signed up with Amazon US and you go to inventory, you can just enroll like in 2 clicks to cross-sell in Canada and Mexico. So that's been pretty simple. I've only been doing that for a few months, but we've actually seen a bit of sales from Mexico, much more than Canada, interestingly.
Wow. Oh, wow.
So that's an easy way to do that. I haven't like really considered like going to Japan and all that because, like I said, my goal is not to become like a huge MNC. My goal is to have a business that earns enough and then allows me to be free to do the things that I feel are more important in life.
For sure. Totally agree on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the Amazon seller's dream, Jason.
I mean, the point for me, like going on e-commerce, was actually when my daughter was 8, which is 10 years ago. My daughter's in first year uni now. But when she was 8, one day my wife came to me and she said that our daughter asked why daddy's never home for dinner when I used to have a day job. Yeah. So I don't want, like, I've had offers, like people from Indonesia say like, we want to carry your product in our supermarket. So like, do you want to like explore this? I'm like, yeah, I could explore this and that would be huge, but that would also mean that that just defeats the whole point of why I'm doing this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Jason, because we also receive offers from sellers from international, and there's a recent one I think is from Denmark, but I was quite reluctant because just the background work. What if there are issues and so on? Just taking away a little bit of time and more time for a small part of a business. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I suppose at the end of the day, it's just a focus where what you want our business to be. Yes.
Exactly. Well, Carlo is saying great insights. Aaron is here. Thanks for sharing great tips. There's one last question before we let you go, Jason and Annie. So Suchi's asking, hey, Jason, for a beginner to learn PPC, would you suggest any good starting point?
Sure. I've explored a lot of PPC tools and also training. I've even signed up for some really expensive training myself, and almost had permanent head damage from trying to get a PhD in that. But I think something that's really helpful is a tool that I learned about from Megla, actually, PPC Ninja. And you can go search online. Megla's done a webinar with the CEO of PPC Ninja, and then I've also just last week done a couple of webinars for I have a sort of like a coaching clientele, so I did 2 webinars with PPC Ninja, and that's also posted on my website. I've uploaded it there and on YouTube. So yeah, if you look at my name on this webinar, you'll see the link to my website.
There it is, jasonteonline.com. So Suchi, go to jasonteonline.com and look for the videos on Jason's website. Cool. Awesome. Well, Annie, Jason, thank you so much for your time today. It was great catching up, and hopefully we will be able to meet again in person once everything settles down. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having us today.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Okay, so now let's switch gears. Now we're going from e-commerce to talking to how he is dealing with all of these challenges that 2020 has brought upon us. I'm going to invite my next guest on the screen here, Nigel Smith from Hong Kong. Hello, Nigel. How are you doing? Hi, Nigel. Can you hear me? Hi, Nigel. Can you hear me?
I'm having a little difficulty. Just then. Yes, thank you.
Okay, awesome. Welcome to our show, Nigel. It's so lovely to have you here. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing really well, thank you. We're just having a few connection problems, so my team might help me a little bit. But anyway, we can go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So Nigel, you are the managing director for Colliers International in Hong Kong. And what I wanted to do today was bring you on and ask you how you've been dealing with all of the challenges that 2020 has literally thrown in our laps. And as a leader of a big corporation, how are you dealing with these challenges, and what advice do you have for entrepreneurs to as they tackle the situation? So first of all, Nigel, before I get into the questions, do you want to introduce yourself for our audience here and just tell us a bit about your background and what exactly you do at Colliers?
Of course. Thank you very much. So I've been in real estate for 33 years, of which I've spent 30 years here based in Hong Kong. So I'm very much a local here, as much as one can be. I did a real estate degree, so I've gone all the way through. I also did an MBA in real estate and finance. I've worked with several companies here, and my professional experience is really centered around the design, marketing, and leasing of office buildings. So that's my professional experience. And my accolade would be to say that I've worked on pretty much every single super tall office building in the region. including Shanghai Tower and Ping An IFC, which are some of the tallest at over 600 meters. But as you alluded to, I joined Colliers 5 years ago to take on a very different role. And it's the managing director of Colliers here in Hong Kong. We're an international firm, but I just run this city office. And it was a different opportunity for me to run basically a business. And my goal was to grow the business and upgrade the brand. So that's where I started from 5 years ago. And we've been relatively successful. We had 3 amazing years. Of course, the last 2 years have been very difficult for everybody, but we'll get into that a little bit more later. But, really some of the things that I've been doing is, when you look at the overall business, you're really effectively managing people. And I think that's what this interview is more about.
Yes, absolutely. So, let me ask you, Nigel, how exactly have you been affected? And of course, I mean, being a company that really deals with property, I can assume how much you've been impacted. But can you tell us a little bit more in what ways you've been impacted by COVID-19?
Well, look, we always have to start off with talking about the people, which are our most important asset. It's really their concern and their worry, and actually what people have been talking about most recently, which is their mental health. There has been a lot of misunderstanding, or let's call it poor communication, externally, internally. And to be honest, we were learning on the job. I mean, when this all kicked off at the beginning of COVID, just after Chinese New Year, none of us really knew what we should be doing. So we were testing and trialing. But of course, we all know in Hong Kong, we've done exceptionally well, both outside of the office space, but also inside. We were very clear on protocols, the way that we handle people's attitude. Bear in mind, I've got a 200 people that report into me. And, I have to understand as the managing director that I've got people who are sort of almost saying there's nothing going on to those who haven't walked outside of their apartment. And I have to manage everybody's single personal perspective and say, hey, that's okay. Both of those extremes are no problem at all. So trying to lead people through adversity, keeping them motivated, helping them understand how to operate in different ways. And really what this is, in some sort of summary, is about sort of driving positive change in the face of it all. As we say, when you're deep and dark in the tunnel, sometimes you see the light at the end of the tunnel, but then it turns out to be another train approaching you very fast. And that's what it's been like. And one example of that was that just as things started to settle and we got into our rhythm here, our global operation said, right, you need to start doing X, Y, and Z. And we sort of said, well, we're through that. We don't need to do that. So I'm also managing up as well as down, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. I can totally understand how challenging it must be for you. So what are some of the strategic changes that you have made, in the way that you lead your company and in the way that you manage, especially your people? What sort of changes have you made?
Well, look, first and foremost, we made a decision early on to keep our office open. I felt that was the most important thing because I wanted all of our staff to have access to space that they were used to and that has everything in it. And I'm particularly referring to IT and computers and technology, the way that we communicate with our clients. For us, we're a people business, so we go out and we work with our clients. We do office leasing, we do office sales or sales across the board, valuations, and our people had to actually get into the office to print out documents, to access servers, some of the things that normally have been locked out of access in terms of when you're outside of the office. So the first thing we did was said, okay, we're going to keep the office open, but then that's not really good enough. You have to let people make their own choices. Now, we've been talking about work from home, hot desking, activity-based working for years and years and years. Obviously, now we know all of those have been totally accelerated. But here's the point. It's allowing your people to make choices. You've got to allow them to come to you within certain parameters. You give them advice and say, this is what I want to do. And some of those people said, I don't want to come into the office. And they didn't come in for 3 months. And that was perfectly okay. Others said, I want to come in the office. I'm talking about myself. I didn't want to be at home personally, and that's got to be okay as well. And then the sort of the hybrids in between, those who said, well, I sort of want to come in between 10 and 12, but then I'm going to go out for the rest of the afternoon. Is that okay? And we often would say, yes, of course. Now, within that, you have to set up very clear health and safety guidelines. And this is where some of the challenges come in, because people, as I said earlier, misunderstand where you're trying to come from and go to. And so there's a lot of psychology in the workplace, more than I think people understand. People will say, oh, I understand EQ, but I think it's more than that. You have to understand where people are worried and therefore making complaints, and what is the root of their complaint. And more often than not, it comes down to misunderstanding. So a lot of communication education and showing people how that, whilst you've tried your best, it may not be up to their standard. That's okay, but please allow us to try and improve as best we can if they can only help us. And as Jeff Bezos would say, that complaining is not a strategy. You have to get people out of that mindset, but people complain when they're scared. Comes back to that psychology. So we allow people to make choices. We did go through A/B teams, and I was finally forced to work from home. I personally didn't like working from home because I was on my own. My family's not in Hong Kong at the moment. And I sat at a dining room table with a terrible straight back chair, and it was hard. I had access to everything, but then I started to pick on my helper. You're not cleaning enough. So for me personally, I didn't enjoy it. But then they said to me, made a very good point. Look, you've got to lead by example. And I think it comes back to the root of what we're talking about here. So I had to lead by example and show the staff that it was okay to work from home, that it was okay to not wear a tie if that's what it took. It was okay to wear a mask around the office. So these are some of the things that we had to change, very much mindset orientated, but also some of those protocols.
Right. Yeah, I think everybody is just dealing and adjusting with the new normal. It's not easy on anybody. So as a leader of a company, how do you manage your employees' morale? I think that's something that's super important because, like you said, some people don't want to work from home and some people do want to work, and, they're dealing with so many other issues as well. And maybe, they can't go out as well. Everybody's stuck at home and there's no entertainment and people are frustrated and the kids are home as well. That's added pressure if you're a parent. So I think, people's morale is low. So how do you manage to keep their morale high?
Yeah, and look, it's not easy for one fundamental reason, and a single word called gossip. And that's what leads to misunderstandings. And look, I think the root of the gossip sometimes comes back to what you were just saying. I would call it, people felt lonely, to be honest. Not lonely being at home, because actually the home environment can be too noisy and have lots of pollution in terms of noise and smells and other distractions. But people started to feel quite lonely. And I think to your point about, what do they do? Not wondering. And then here's the next key thing. What does my boss think of me? I'm not in the office. He can't see me. How do I show him I'm performing, or how do I show them that I'm actually working hard and being productive? And so actually people started working harder at home. And so there's an exhaustion factor coming in. So I think the first thing we need to understand, as we did, we took the approach of understand that they feel alone, they need help, they don't know what help they want. So now let's set up some guidelines and some protocols and listen to them. There was a lot of, oh, this is not good enough, that's not good enough. And you have to say, I get it, take it on board and try to make an actionable change. But to your actual question, I mean, really morale is a hard thing. The first thing I'd always say to people when they come up to me is the MD. And it's almost like they want to see my reaction. And they would say, you know what, Nigel, the morale in the office is really bad. And I'd look at them and I say, well, of course it is. Have you seen what's going on outside this office? It's terrible. The world, the region, Hong Kong, people's experiences. So that sort of took them by surprise because it's like, well, the boss is agreeing with me. That doesn't seem right. But then I try to change their mindset and say, well, look, there are different ways we can look at this, but there's only so much talking can do. So some of the real tangible things we did was, setting up some training programs to talk through things like mental health that I talked about earlier. We got some inspirational speakers in. We did simple things like sales training. People felt wanted. Oh, I've been put on a training course. That means they like me, they want me, my career's okay. Remember, there's people who are feeling very insecure. We're about to put on an afternoon where we've got 3 masseuses coming in to do head and shoulder massages if you sign up. We, for the next 3 months, in the 3rd week of each month, you can leave the office at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for a wellness afternoon. Do whatever you want. No need to take annual leave. No problem at all. And we've also done a bit of a combined fitness training. So most of the things we did not take money, I'm pleased to say. Some things did, but it was very valuable and well spent. The thing that most people have clicked on the email when it came out with the announcement was the half day off, the wellness day, as we called it. That was a real morale booster. The other big morale booster was, and we went early in terms of cuts, was reinstating salaries. So our business now is looking a lot less fragile. And so when we reinstated salaries, me as a managing director, again, as much EQ as I've got, it really was heartening and took me a little bit in a pleasant way by surprise when people came back to me and said, oh my goodness, thank you so much. This means a huge amount to me. And we forget that when you take a pay cut of some sort, that you're trying to help the company, but actually you're going through personal sacrifices. And so something for us that I really resonated with me was just understanding that personal touch.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely good advice. So a lot of our listeners and a lot of the buyers that import products from China, they are also entrepreneurs. They have smaller operations, and some of them are e-commerce sellers, and they're maybe just a couple of people running the entire company. So for entrepreneurs with smaller companies and maybe a fewer number of employees, what sort of advice do you have for them to deal with all of the situation and the negativity that is there nowadays in the world?
Right, sure. Look, I will have to qualify and say I've only ever worked for very large corporations. I've never been an entrepreneur. So I hope these words that I can purvey today are helpful in some way. But I'd always say, look for the best words, the best advice that you believe in and you can take hold of. Throw away the rest. So I say that up front, and I say that in all of my training sessions. I belittle it to 20%. I don't mean that literally, but I say take the best 20% and use it because it's manageable. But really, what are the things that I've found very helpful and a sort of a factor of some of our successes this year in the past 5 years? First of all, learning to decompress. Now, I'd add on to that and stay fit. But let's focus on the decompressing part. It's really important to, at the moment you leave the office or open the front door to your apartment, whether your kids are jumping into your arms or you're sitting down, relaxing to eat or watching a movie, you need to decompress. You need to forget about the office. And as one boss said to me, a great mentor of mine, he said, no one is indispensable, including me, which basically meant I could be fired at any time. Now, that's not the point I'm trying to make here, but my point is the office will continue without you. Even though you're an entrepreneur, it's only you. You must try and find that time to decompress. And if that's going for a run, a bit of exercise, then do it. If it's going for a drink with some buddies, then do it. So I find that really important because stress is one of the biggest killers. Sorry to be so dramatic here, but if you let your stress levels get too high and get over you, it's going to be literally catastrophic. So I think that's the first thing. So how do you do that? Let's talk about the office environment. Well, you have to stay positive. And this is the way I stay positive. Again, the same mentor said to me, Nigel, never worry about where you are in the market cycle. So what that means is, for real estate, whether you're going up and it's going fantastically well, or it's going down like now, and you feel the world is falling apart. He said, never worry about the things you can't control. So that, in my world, is the market. He said, but just always look for the opportunities because they're out there everywhere. If only you can open your eyes and see them. So now that sounds a bit superficial, a bit sort of squishy, but actually it really does work. I can promise you in 33 years it works. If you stop worrying about the things you can't control and just focus in on seeing things differently. So hold on, is there an angle? Could I phone that guy if I can't have a cup of coffee with him and just have a chit chat, because he might be lonely. He might want somebody to chat to, and then start off in a different way. Like, hey, how's it going? What have you been watching? Oh, by the way, there's some business conversation. So I think staying positive, be optimistic, look for the opportunities. Don't worry about the things you can't control. I think the next section is, if you are going through some major changes, whether it's because the market is worsening for you as an entrepreneur, but it's the same if the market's going up, which is act fast, don't wait. Don't sit on your hands and say, oh, I can do that tomorrow. Let's do the extreme example. If you have to fire somebody, do it straight away. Don't say, oh, they might get better next month. I've got brokers. It's funny. My sales brokers and leasing brokers, when they feel that their job is at threat, it's funny how their pipeline of potential revenue suddenly increases. It was never there in the first place. So see people for what they are. Everybody's a great person. You've just got to see whether they're a right fit for you. And I think that's really important. So act fast and don't wait. The next thing you need to be aware of is to be very true to your personal compass. Right? So if you don't know what that means, what I understand that to be is, look, I want to go in this direction. I have a certain set of personal guidelines, professionalism. I'm not going to deviate from that, but I know I can change. So you stay true to where you want to go, what is right and wrong, but at the same time, you have to maneuver and be very, very flexible. So I think that's important. Stay true to your personal compass, do what's right, particularly in these difficult times, but at the same time, you know where you're going, you're going to have to remain flexible, particularly as an entrepreneur. I mentioned earlier about people, however many people you've got, and it might just be you, don't forget the EQ and the psychology of the workplace. Just the way people will be looking at your face. So your staff will come in the morning, they're going to take a snapshot, read of what you look like, and decide whether it's going to be a good day or a bad day. Now, you can't be over optimistic here. You've got to be realistic, of course, but you need to be aware that they're looking at you. Every single motion and every single little word that seems so simple to you as a throwaway line to an employee actually might haunt them or worry them for days on end. As they say, what you don't know, you make up, and what you make up is always negative. And that's what your staff do. So you've got to help them overcome that by being very aware of your EQ. Be aware of what you come across, how you come across, and your stance. And then that comes down to really how you communicate. So you've got to be a very good orator, communicator, whether it's emails or through just verbal communication. Remember everybody's names. In an entrepreneur world, that's easy. It's you and the other guy, and it's Fred. But if there are other people, say hello to them. I think it changes your mindset. And then finally, I'd say, don't ever stop networking. It's so important that you are mindful of future business. And again, the final quote from this great mentor of mine, if you analyze sort of the place of your work and your career in terms of a pencil, and the sharp end of the pencil is where you write the fees and you make the money. The rubber end of the pencil is business development. Some people might call them fat cats. My job as the managing director is sit right in the middle. Not too close to writing the fees, but I've got to be close enough to bring the money in and help the guys on the ground. But I don't want to be a fat cat and sit at the top. I've still got to run and press the flesh. And that's where the networking comes in. And I think in COVID, what some people fell into the trap, to be honest, in my opinion, is that they thought, oh, well, the world stopped, so I'll just sit back and do nothing. That was the worst thing they could have done. There were so many opportunities out there to just touch base with clients. Sure, nothing was going to happen for 6 months. There's no pressure. That's even easier. But just to build a relationship. And I think that's the final piece of advice I'd give entrepreneurs.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. And some of the advice there, I think I needed to hear. I'm an entrepreneur myself. And sometimes it's very difficult to decompress. And, as entrepreneurs, we just keep going. And sometimes I have like 12-hour days. So yeah, fantastic advice there, Nigel. So also another concern that I've been hearing people have is, of course, the job market is very, volatile and uncertain, and people are scared that they're going to lose their jobs. And, what advice do you have for employees, if they're in that sort of a situation and they're very uncertain about their jobs in their current company, should they first of all go and ask their bosses, hey, what's going on, and can you clearly tell me what's next for me? Also, they're concerned about their careers, right? I mean, not only their jobs, they have to first of all keep their jobs, but then what sort of career progression can they expect in the next few months? Or is that something that they should not be worried about at all in this sort of environment, and then just focus on keeping the job?
Okay, well, let's three parts. They're each lovely. So I think, look, you've got to be proactive as an employee. No question about it. And I always was. And in the old days when we used to write memos in the internal post, and every March before the promotions in April, I'd write a memo to my boss to let him know what I'd done throughout the year. And every year he would call me up the next day and say, Nigel, I had completely forgotten what you did this time last year. And well done. I'm so pleased you did. It helped me. And now I'm going to promote you. I'm not saying I got a promotion every year, as I did for doing that. But here's the point. Bosses forget. We're really busy. There's a million things on our mind. And depending on where you sit in the organization, and if you're a smaller potato, as somebody once said to me this morning, then unfortunately, we're just not going to remember everything. So it's important that and somehow you get that information across to them. Now, you've got several ways you can do that. Yes, you could be in the office and you could pass by them and say, hey, how's it going? I just want to let you know we just did this. Obviously, good news is good. So find those opportunities to interact, communicate with. But at the end of the day, if you're just dropping your boss an email, we love that stuff. If a young person in my organization wrote me and said, hey, Nigel, I just want to let you know, I'm really excited about working here. And I love the environment. Thank you. Nothing about what they've done. That would be so heartening to me. And I go out of my way to find that person. And now what that says to me is that that person's got a different style and a different ability, because that leads on to what you said latterly, which is about the career path and how do you look at that. So I think be proactive. You don't have to work longer hours these days. You don't have to come into the office, but you need to let the boss know what you're doing. And it might be several bosses. There's a great book by, what's his name? Not Pal Zalery. Anyway, he was saying, this gentleman wrote a book about, it should be no surprise that the people who get on well with the bosses find a faster promotion plan. And that's assuming all people being equal. And that's not being a sycophant, a brown noser or a teacher's pet. What do these names get called? No, it's just letting the bosses know that you want to be seen. And I think that leads into the second point, which is so do you worry about your job at the moment, or do you start looking? Well, look, if you're being proactive, you'll be coming across the boss anyway. Yes, if the moment's right to say to them, hey, look, I'd love to hear your view on me. Could you help me? Remember, ask them to help you and say, could you help me and tell me where I can improve? Because I'm trying to get ahead in this company. That's a lovely way of asking somebody, basically, what do you think of me? And do I have a chance of staying around? We'll be very honest with you. Look, at that moment, if you are in the firing line, so to speak, we're not going to tell you, but we're going to be there to help you. So comes on to that point. You start looking around. Well, it's up to you. You've got to decide how much loyalty you want to spend with the company and how much you want to progress your career. There's no right and wrong. Don't worry about it. Yes, employers like loyalty, but we also understand that it's great to have fresh blood. There's a wonderful book called The Alliance. Basically that talked about bringing in younger people, putting them on tours of duty. And we know the younger generation like to move around and learn lots of different things. And that's very healthy to actually go to your boss and say, I'm thinking of leaving, but I might come back one day. We don't mind. That's okay. So this is part of the new normal. That leads on to your final part of the question, which is career development. Look, I think you've always got to have a short, medium, and long-term objective. And you've got to be working on each of those at the same time. But you're going to be working more on your short term, less on your medium, and a lot less on your long term. It's a bit like, Hansel and Gretel. You need to lay the breadcrumbs. You need to throw down some subtleties of what you would like to do in the future. Bosses, we're not mind readers. We might have high EQ, but we're not mind readers. So let us know what you want to do. Every year we actually have an assessment form that I will be doing, and at the bottom it says, where do you want to go next? What's your career aspirations within the business? And so I think work on that every day and think about what are the things I could do today in 10 years' time. So for me, for example, coming out here to Hong Kong at 24 years old, I was worried that when I went back to the UK, which I never did, that they would look down on me for having a fun time overseas. It was actually the complete opposite. I mean, here we work equally, if not more harder than the UK. But I decided I better do a further education. So when I go back to the UK, I'll be able to say, look, I've worked hard, but look, I also did some further education. That was part of my long-term career. Another example, I decided early on that I thought I might want to go and work in America. And I knew how important those 3 letters are to American businesses, MBA. So I thought, right, I'm going to plan ahead. Maybe in 5-10 years' time, I might go to America. I'm going to start an MBA now. And I did that. It was a distance learning one. I wasn't at Harvard or Fontainebleau, but I knew how important those letters were. And actually, when I did interview, finally, it was funny. I have all these letters after my name for real estate. And the gentleman said to me, he said, Nigel, I understand the first 3 letters, but what the hell is all that lot? So I planned ahead. At the same time, that MBA taught me a lot of great things for my immediate future and my medium-term future. So start to play around with all the little things. Be aware that I can drop a breadcrumb today that might not help me for 10 years. And then if you start thinking about that concept, you start to see the future. And if you can understand the future is very simple, it's just, there's going to be an optimistic scenario, a realistic scenario, and a pessimistic scenario for everything you do. And of course, you want the optimistic, but you don't know where the markets will go at that time. But if you think things through hard enough, and which of those scenarios at that point in time in the future is more likely than the other, you're seeing the future. But you need to be present to that future today to be able to achieve those goals and wishes of what you want in the future.
That is a lot of food for thought, Nigel. So we have one question here. Cecile is saying very insightful. And she also has a question. It's funny, but for some parts true, how the boss's mood determines whether it's a good day or otherwise in the office. Any advice to grouchy bosses?
Yeah, don't be grouchy. Look, you've got to have a game plan, boys and girls. I have 3 faces. I don't mind sharing this. I have 3 faces that I practice in the mirror over the years. I've got a don't come and talk to me face. This is this one, right? My mouth goes down. Then I've got a just plain, you could read me either way. That's my mouth goes straight across. And then I've got my happy face. So I know I've got 3 faces and I can use those faces. If I'm really busy, I'll put on more of the grouchy face. Now, inside, I'm happy as hell. Oh, I'm happy. I just don't want people to approach me because I'm really busy. Now, that's the first thing. So be aware of what you look like, learn your faces and how to control them and use them in a very positive way. But the second thing is, look, at the end of the day, you can't bring your personal baggage to the office. You've got to leave it at home. If you've had a big fight with your wife or your kid's done something that you didn't like or your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, you cannot bring that to the office. You've got to allow that moment between the home and the office to decompress. And you start every day. It's a bit like the waiter who does a second round serving in the restaurant. He's got to be Mr. Happy and like it was the first time he was serving somebody that evening, even though he's done it already once before. How do you come across time and time again as fresh? And I liken it to the cocktail parties. I have to run cocktail parties. I have to be super fresh, super on point, remember every client's name as they walk through that door, whether it's 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. or 9 p.m. at night. So you've got to leave the baggage behind. You've got to, yes, your emotions are there. You can't hide them totally. And I wouldn't say you need to change your personality. I'm not saying any of this, but you've got to manage some personal experience from the business. You've got to be mature, and maturity takes a long time to understand and to go through it. And I think what's more important, irrespective of where you are in the maturity level, it really doesn't matter. It's just being aware of it. Try to be aware that, your fuse might be a little bit shorter. And mine was in my 20s, for goodness sake. I'm 54. So look, I'm preaching. I've had 33 years of experience, but I still learn to this day. I have to tell me sometimes, Nigel, leave that behind. See the situation as is. Do not get grumpy. But I can't help it sometimes, to be honest. But try your best to think about it. If you're thinking about it, then that will at least try and help reduce it.
That is fantastic advice. Well, Nigel, thank you so much for your time today, and it was really nice, hearing all of this advice from you. And I'm sure our audiences will be able to hopefully implement some of this. So, thank you so much for joining us, and I will see you around. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you very much.
All right, so there you have it. This was the Buyer's Fireside Talk at Global Sources. And don't forget, we are going to be coming to you live next week, next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Hong Kong time, with another session of supplier stories. That is where suppliers from China and other countries come online and show you their products, and you can ask them any questions about their products or their companies and contact them directly. All right, until then, thank you so much for joining us today, and have a good weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.